If you're nurturing and selling, you're going to sell, but it's going to eventually dry up until you get new eyeballs and more attention. Every idea can become 3 posts. Tell your big long story, record it. It's now a 90-second video. Pull out one nugget that you said, paste it onto B-roll. Take the key things from the story, put it onto graphics, make it a quick carousel. It's never going to be good if it's just in your head. Let it suck, get it up there, start the next one. If a post doesn't do well, no one sees it anyway. Sometimes that post that you thought was stupid and that you whipped up in 5 minutes ends up being life-changing.
Tell everybody what you do. Give them a little snapshot into what your business, what your expertise is.
Yeah, okay. So way back in the day, I was at and a bartender, and I got pushed into this world of managing social media for basically places I already worked, like the bar I worked at, the yoga studio I volunteered at, and I never chose it, and I actually pushed back against it for a really long time. But here we are 8 years later. I'm now a social media expert. I created a very big social media management agency and then a program to teach service-based business owners how to get clients from Instagram, and now I step up on stages speaking about it. I don't know how I got here.
You just told us how you got here. That's kind of the hero's journey with a lot of entrepreneurs. It's just one little thing that you sometimes resist and it turns into your whole entire personality, your whole entire lifeblood. So it sounds like you went into it kicking and screaming, but it kind of worked out for you.
Oh my God, it is my whole personality. Yeah, I started getting into it and I started getting fascinated with PR, fascinated with digital marketing and social media and public image, and then sales copy and photography, and then all of the things. And my entire world, kind of my customer service brain, plus my growing up as a performer brain, all of it just combined into being really good helping people make social media content that makes them money by bringing them clients. At the end of the day, it all came to that. Who knew?
Yeah. Who knew? I think there's a lot of us, like I'm one of them, younger theater kids, that it felt like the only way you're ever going to make anything of this is to get on Broadway. And now it's like, I have my own show every single day. Like I can put on a show for anyone, anytime. And so that background, that with so many other curiosities that we had back in our, I don't know how old you are. For me, it was like the 90s, early 2000s has now compounded into a pretty cool skill set. We never could have banked on it, but it's worked out.
You have no idea how much that deeply resonates with me. I spoke on a panel for Shopify once about how actors make good entrepreneurs for so many reasons. And now we find each other under bed sheets and around corners. And we're like,
I know what you were doing 10 to 15 to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I know why you're the way that you are. I totally get it. That's so funny. Okay, so specifically too, you've done a lot. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs do this where they're like, you build this massive skill set, but even right now, you've built this social media agency. Do you feel like Instagram is your specialty? What did it look like to kind of niche down to that when there are so many things you could be educating on?
Oh, yeah. So Instagram became my specialty about 4 years ago. And funny enough, I was my last friend to even do it. I was like, I'm funny on Twitter. Doesn't even exist anymore. So I was really lucky that as a social media manager, most social media managers have had a handful of clients or they built their own following. That's pretty standard. But because I had such a mixed bag of connections in the city and then the world, I have worked for like hundreds of companies. And then I was helping film festivals a lot. Like I'm telling this poorly, but I basically became connected to a publicist. She taught me PR and I taught her social media. And then I would do the social media for her clients at film festivals like Sundance and TIFF. So then that happened. And then I got a lot of short-term contracts as well. And everybody wants a different thing. And all of the business owners or filmmakers are just a little bit different. So then I got like a ton of experience. Instead of staying with one company for 15 years, I stayed with a whole bunch of different ones, short-term, long-term, all over the place. So I don't remember what I was doing.
No, that's great. So, I mean, it kind of led to, it wasn't necessarily this niche down because you were doing the same thing for the same company constantly. It was, you were really building a massive, massive net of understanding. So I'm sure you found, though, like some common threads there that even if people wanted things done a little bit differently, the company was different, the brand was different, whatever, there was probably some continuity there that you started to be like, you know what, we could simplify this and I could just teach kind of this framework.
Yes. Okay. So I had done a lot of different things. Like I bought a camera. I started doing influencer collabs, contests, paid ads, like Facebook, Hootsuite, TikTok, social listening, all of the things. And then when I really honed in was when I went to make a course. And then I had to be more specific because that's what sells a course, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe 4 years ago or so, probably I think like maybe 2020, 2021, I'm launching this program that is now my flagship program and has evolved quite a lot, but I needed to be more specific. So it went down to just Instagram. And again, I resisted it because I was like, oh, isn't that lame? I'm so good at Facebook groups. And it was for product-based businesses and service providers when it first started. And I really only went specific because I was told that it would help. And then I joined a program to help me turn that program evergreen. And they were like, nope, go further. So then it's like, okay, service-based business owners, Instagram, that's the pocket. And I only made that decision because as a marketer, we know you don't need to niche, but we advise it because it's easier to sell,
Mm-hmm.
easier to market. And there's millions of people that I can help who are service-based business owners and want to use Instagram. Like the more refined you get, the bigger the audience seems to get. So that's how I ended up zooming in on that one area.
So you practiced what I'm sure you preach now to people too, even when it comes to Instagram marketing, right? I think there is that resistance. It can be really hard when you're a service provider. And I think a lot of people jump into marketing, and I really feel like they fuel each other, where your marketing will help you understand your offer, your product, your brand better, and vice versa. And so for you, as you're guiding other people through this, what's kind of your rule of thumb when it comes to niching down? I know you just said it helped you a lot. It makes things super easy. But how do you kind of help people work through that? Because even for me, I'm like, I've been at this forever, and I still just feel this physical reaction when you tell me, make it simpler, go a little bit deeper.
I try not even to say niche down. Like I'll try and like in my head, I'm like niche out, niche open, niche big. Like maybe we don't, because I know for as a singer, wait, when you were a theater kid, were you a musical theater kid?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So one of the biggest mindset shifts I ever had as a singer was to not think of high notes as high or up, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
look at a piano, it is a cross. It is not happening higher because then things start to happen physically that make you bad at getting the sound. So like you start to raise your eyebrows, you start to reach, you start to lift your chin because it's a high note you've been
Yeah.
told. So it's kind of like that in niching. Like maybe don't think of it as down, think of it as throwing a dart at the center where way more money is than the outside that's bigger but has less money and is equally as hard to hit anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're still going to be working for it. So, in terms of how I operate, no one's asked me this before, but I do have an answer. So, when someone joins my program, Magic Marketing Machine, the like quote unquote rule, like what we advise is you have sold your thing before. Whether you've sold it 3 times or 3,000 times, you have sold it because I'm not a business coach who's going to help you create your offer. So I just want to help you sell it. And I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to teach you everything you need to know to sell it as much and as easily with as less friction, as little as friction as possible. But at the end of the day, you're the boss. And if you say that your niche is women, like as broad as you can possibly get, I'm going to tell you how, like that I'm going to advise you that I think it might be easier if we get more specific. I'm going to give you some exercises to try that. But at the end of the day, you're the boss and I will help you sell it no matter how it exists. But if you come in and you haven't sold your thing yet, then that's less of a match because I don't know if it will even be possible for you to sell it. So just prove that you can sell it, even if it was just by convincing someone on the street to buy it. You've got that one person. Okay, great. Let's move on to phase 2.
Let's zoom out a little bit and look at what this looks like on Instagram specifically, because that is what your specialty is that you reluctantly went into, but now you're there. And so you get to be the genius in that zone, which is amazing. So walk us through a little bit of maybe like your framework of what this looks like to leverage Instagram wisely, because it can not be treated like a tool. It could just be treated like this optional thing. So just kind of get into that with us.
Yeah. Okay. So before you said, I'm sure you noticed some similarities amongst all of your clients. And I definitely did, only because a business coach at the time asked me, like, what's my process? Like, how am I doing this for all these different clients where I'm running all their socials? And so I did assess it. And I thought, okay, well, for this client, I have these types of posts going up every week that are meant to get us more engagement and get like clicks, because if we get those clicks, then people are more likely to see our stuff that's a little bit more nurturing and teaching and builds authority and that sort of thing. That stuff on its own doesn't typically go viral, but we need it in order for someone to feel safe buying from us. Okay, so now we've
Mm-hmm.
got the fun clickety clack stuff and the nurture, trust you, authority stuff. And then, of course, we need the sales stuff. Sales stuff doesn't really get a lot of clicks, It's not going to ever go viral, maybe like once in a blue moon, but that's what actually makes the person money. So then I'm like, oh, okay. So we've got our growth content, our nurture content, and our sales content. I go over to client B. I look at it. I'm like, I'm doing the same thing. Trying to get them clicks on Monday, warm them up on Tuesday, sell on Wednesday, like essentially. And that's like an oversimplification of the strategies my clients end up teaching, because there are other elements we want to put in there. We want to have some FaceTime. We want to have some social proof, blah, blah, blah. But if we just made it like cut and dry, every week you need some stuff that gets attention, some stuff that warms your people up, some stuff that sells.
Yeah. I love that. I've been coaching a client a little bit, and this is not even at all what I do normally, but we kind of just went down this lane, and I ended up doing a lot of social media coaching with her, and she's specifically focusing on TikTok, but the rules apply. There's just a little bit of a different usage with the platforms. And we went through and we kind of noticed, and you said something that really plays into this, that we don't really go viral with that educational content, that authority sitting content. But I even ran some of her content through AI, and it was like, through this framework of understanding we need these different types of content. And it said it's 100% nurture and educate and like 0% growth content. None of this stuff is likely to go viral. And so it's just such good information. And do you feel like that's what most people are doing, is they're just kind of stuck in this age of giving tips and tricks and just trying to over educate? And how do we break out of that to start understanding how to create the growth content?
So my clients are service providers, and think like, oh my gosh, nutritionist, dietitian, Reiki master, therapist, IEP advocate. So like, I never said women who are helpers and healers, but it's that. It's like a huge amount of my client base are women who are helpers and healers and coaches and designer, like creatives. Of course, they're going to just teach and give and be generous in their content. Of course, it is so easy for them. It's the easiest thing for them to do, even when it's hard. So those types of people, yeah, they're doing a lot of nurture. They're afraid to sell. They're saying things like, I just want my content to speak for itself. If they do sell, they're not sounding as confident as the man 2 doors down when he sells. They're afraid that they're going to hurt their friends and family's feelings if they sell, and then they see that content. And then growth is kind of an art unto itself. So a lot of people just don't even really know how to do it. So yeah, they're leaning into nurture. And the way that I like to say it is like, if you're nurturing and selling, you're going to sell. You're going to have sales come in, you're going to have clients come in, but it's going to eventually dry up until you get new eyeballs and more attention. So even if your growth content isn't bringing in new followers, bringing you into people's feeds that already follow you. Otherwise, they kind of just disappear into the ether, right?
Yeah.
So you will sell, just not as much as if you were also getting attention and just having some fun with it.
Right. Because it is a numbers game. And I think we also don't love to hear that when you're a creative service provider, is like, well, I just don't want to play that game. Like you said, I just want my work to speak for itself. I think this is one of the most challenging things, is using social media with some kind of a plan and some kind of a strategy, because I don't know if it's just because for a while it was conditioned to be this space just for fun. And so we feel like we're doing it wrong if we're actually thinking about it or being intentional with it. But I know even for me, it's just felt like this forced thing. And then you resent the platform. You resent having to even market on social media. You're like, I'll just go back to the dark ages. I'll go to networking events and I'll rely exclusively on word of mouth, because marketing doesn't work, right?
Well, it's like watching soccer, though, right? So like, my husband watches soccer every Sunday, much to my disdain. And like, I've watched lots of it. Can I play? No, I can barely run. Like, I can't play soccer just because I watched it. And we all grew up on social media, right? You and I are like, what did we graduate in 2007, something like that? Like,
A
we
little older, but yes, we'll say that. Yep.
Okay. So since we were younger, we were on these apps as a consumer. So we go, yeah, I get it. I've been on social media for 20 years. I know how it works. But you were a consumer. You weren't a soccer player. Now you're a soccer player. It's going to have to change a little.
Yep. Time to get your head in the game. Okay. So since people tend to err on the side of educational content because they're wise in their space, I see myself doing this. I want to touch on this a little bit too for everybody listening. I noticed this year, because my accounts have not grown, and part of that is for lack of consistency, I've always been able to do pretty well without it. And so I kind of use that as my excuse of like, look, I've made tons of money and I have 5,000 followers on Instagram. So who needs it, right? But I started to really reevaluate what was working and what was not working. And my husband even kind of audited my account with me, and he was like, "You are so clinical. Stop just teaching. It's good content, but you're not making it personal and your story isn't in there." And there was a level of safety for me. There was a lot of stuff that happened in the past that made vulnerability feel really scary. But I think that's something that I default to, is if I can just talk at you and I can just teach at you, then that can be safe. And then I can be consistent posting that stuff. But I absolutely did not grow the entire summer. I posted 3 times a day, did not grow. In fact, I shrunk. And so
Okay, wait, did you look in your settings to see if new people came as well as new people leaving? Like just to make sure,
they
like to
did a
see if,
little bit, yeah. So it
okay.
wasn't like it. Yes, it's because there was people leaving and there were a few coming, but the growth was. And when I say 3 times a day, that was TikTok. I think I did Instagram once a day, and it was really with no strategy, no intention. So I'm like the person who understands how to play soccer, but also
Mm-hmm.
feels like she can just show up to the game and didn't do any practicing and have the results. And I had no perception that I was going to explode. But I think we can get into that rut too of, if I'm consistent and I post every day, I should grow. And that's absolutely
Well,
not
yeah.
true. If you're
I
posting the
mean,
wrong stuff.
but if you posted through, you should have grown. Yeah. So
Yeah.
something's missing. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I am well aware of all of this, of course, right?
Yeah.
And 2 weeks ago, three, four, you know what? 2 months ago, I was doing a launch and I had listened to this podcast that was like, make your launch an experience, right? So I did like my webinar launch and then I was like, oh, I'm going to make it an experience. I'm going to invite people, if they don't buy in the first, like before the first fast action or whatever, I'm going to, at the last minute, announce a co working event where you come in and you speed make 3 posts with me. And so the night before, we were like, come tomorrow, speed make 3 posts with me. It's going to be so fun. And it was mid launch, and we invited people. There were some, I think, people from who hadn't RSVP'd. Like I might have mentioned it in my stories, but most people there were like, or like a huge portion of the people there, will say, were people who hadn't bought in the first few days of the launch. So I'm like, oh, this will get them. They'll want to work with me after this. And we had 80 people there. Some of them were my clients or whatever. So I don't know the exact stats on this. But anyway, nobody bought. They all had the best time ever. I got so many messages of people being like, that was so great. Look at my post. Here's the post I made. Oh my God, you should do this all the time, yada, yada. Nobody bought because I just gave. I did nurture content. All I did for
Mm.
this hour was hosted a free freaking class with no sales psychology like built into it, right? Like if I
Yeah.
get on a webinar, I close like crazy because it's crafted to sell. You give some away, you're generous, you teach, but that's not exclusively what you do, because that people are, think about it like when they're watching your nurture content and they were watching your how-to content, your teaching content, you know this, but just to exemplify the point for our listeners, like people are in learning mode. They're not in buying mode. They're not in, oh, like Kirsten's going to change my life mode. They're just like, oh, let me grab a pen. Thanks. Like that's,
Yeah.
they're just
Or just
not
save
in
and
that.
I'll probably never come back to that. Like I didn't move
Yeah.
anything forward. I didn't follow. I didn't binge anything because it was just good
Yeah.
information that was kind of siloed from everything else. Yeah.
So if you want to
It's,
like have a practical tip that's just like a baby step, would be instead of giving the how to, give the do not. Like that's
mm,
one baby step. So sometimes, especially givers, they don't like the feeling of this right away because it feels like you're not being generous and your content is now fluff or like somehow manipulative or something. Like this is what people are telling themselves. But giving someone a do not can change their life. Give
mm-hmm.
someone a, hey, like in this moment, like Kirsten, like with your husband, your account's not growing because you're only posting nurture content. Oh, really? Yeah, sometimes that is enough for the post. And then quickly our post can be shorter and still really impactful. And then what's the viewer going to do? They're going to
Mm-hmm.
say, oh, if not this, then what? And now they're queued up to come to you for the answers.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Okay. This is such great, like, tone setting for, I want to get into some of the nitty gritty with those 3 different types of content. Let's start at the top. What do we need to be doing a little differently for growth content? I'm sure there's a bunch of different ways we can format that, structure that, but if you had just like a way to simplify and explain, here's how you'll know it's growth content, not by the outcome, but even as you're building it so that you make sure you're in the right zone.
Oh God. Okay. So again, I teach this stuff and I force people to learn it a certain way. So I don't know that I will give you the answers that you really want today because the very first thing that I'm like always like putting into the brains of my clients is you're deciding. Like the first step is decide. And people will show me their content because like in Magic Marketing Machine, they get like feedback. And so they'll be like, here's my post. Is this growth? And I'll be like, is it? You tell me. Step one was to decide, because if you decide that it's growth, then you're not going to put a sales pitch in it. If you decide that it's growth, you're going to keep it shorter. If you decide that it's growth, you're going to have context at the beginning. So if it shows up in front of a stranger, they know what world they just landed in.
Mm.
You know, like you need to have context clues or actual clues in the text, or say, women entrepreneurs, is this you? Like, say, like, let them know they're in the right place because they don't know who you are. So the first step is just deciding. And then furthermore, on the other end, like once the content goes up, you're going to be nicer to yourself. If the nurture post doesn't get the most views that week, you're going to be like, you know what? I got one comment that said, wow, thanks for this. And that's enough. And it's okay that it didn't get views. Like you're not going to beat yourself up or use that as your metric of success because that wasn't its goal.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So, and it kind of sounds like, and I think I mentioned it to this a little bit, you have to have a plan. You can't just be willy-nilly throwing out posts and then ask the question, is this growth? I love that you reframe that of, I don't know, is it? Because you should be deciding, you should have some kind of a plan going into your content creation. How do you kind of balance this with, I think a lot of us resist structure and we want to feel the content. We want to be inspired when we create it. So how would you recommend somebody who wants to be really connected to the message, but then understand how to quickly frame it in the right place?
So you mean like
combining the strategy of, okay, I want to create some growth posts because it's my goal this week to really see more social media followers come in, but I really want to be able to honor like what I'm feeling, and I might have gotten supercharged by a client experience that I had and I want to share that story, but it might kind of fall into the nurture. Like, how do you balance that to where, and I think I went into a different zone of this question. I think a lot of times we want to feel like it is free flowing and we don't want to be bogged down by the overthinking of, oh my gosh, okay, how do I structure this? Because we just want to make sure we're saying what we mean to say. So how do you kind of help people balance that, like the inspiration for the post with the strategy?
Yeah. So I've got like, I think answers to like 100 different things, but I'll tell you one. Yesterday I was talking to this gal who is in my program and she's so close. Like for weeks, she's been like an inch away from a breakthrough. We like laugh about it. I'm like, oh, we're so close. We're so close. And so now she's coming up with all of these like brilliant ideas. But do you know about the Dunning-Kruger effect?
Mm-mm.
So it's like you start a new hobby and you get really excited about the new hobby and you're like, I'm going to be the world's best watercolor painter, and you buy all your gear and, you know, sit down at the table and your first thing is pretty good and you're on this high, and then you watch a tutorial and it's harder than you're capable of and you paint something that sucks, and then you fall into what Dunning-Kruger calls the valley of despair because you had this high because you were learning this new thing, but the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know in anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as you realize you don't know something and that you will never know the most at it, then you get depressed and then you give up your hobby and then you take up a different cross stitch hobby or whatever, right? So this happens. So the way that I do it with my clients is like at the beginning, you're really, really specific about what is growth, what is nurture, what is sales, and you break it down, and it might be uncomfortable because you're going to be really intentional about that. And then you're going to create a strategy. And you're going to know that every week you have one afternoon, all your ideas down for the strategy, growth, nurture, sales, cool. And then because that's your like, and then you're going to batch that stuff. And I show you how to like batch create it really quickly and it goes up. And then once that's up, you get to post on top of that. If an idea just comes to you and you want to be seat of your pants, I'm very like, oh, let's run through the woods with no shoes on. I'm like that too, right? But if you have your content batched out and you know like your mainstays are good and planned, then it creates all of this freedom because when an idea comes to you, you can just toss it up without having the pressure of that being the only post you posted that day. Okay, so I've said two different things at once. So back to this girl that I was talking to yesterday. She has all of these ideas now, and now she's working on how do I take this wild idea I had and turn it into a post? But she knows so much because she has been like learning that she's like, oh, but what if this hook isn't good enough? And then the post doesn't get made at all because she knows what it needs because of Dunning-Kruger effect, she knows what she doesn't know. So what I said to her was just like, you just got to make it because it's never going to be good if it's just in your head. You just need to make
Mm-hmm.
it, let it suck, get it up there, start the next one, right? If a post doesn't do well, no one sees it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So just make it. And if you look back at it and you go, oh, my hook should have said the word you in it, that's a good hooks tip. Use the word you, make it about the viewer. Oh, that hook was about me. Okay, whatever. Put it up anyway. Let's move on to the next post. Just keep pushing, keep moving forward. Sometimes often that post that you thought was stupid and that you whipped up in 5 minutes ends up being, life-changing nonsense.
Yeah, the thing that like blows up. So this, as you were talking, it kind of led me to another one of my faux pas, which is I get into that zone where I have so many notes on my Apple, on my phone, so many notes with like content ideas. And I think sometimes I stay really big where I'm like, okay, here's a story, here's a story, here's a story. This is another thing. My husband, who's not a social media expert, but he's a great consumer. So he can see like the strategy a little bit just from that perspective. And he was like, you don't need to tell 18 different stories per week. You need to take that one story, that one concept, you need to teach it to me in 6 different ways. Or not, obviously not just teach, but entertain me with it. Give me context for it. Is this something that you see a lot of people doing as well, where they think that they like need to tell their whole life story in 1 month? Because I feel like that leads to me thinking, that's it. I've said all I need to say. Like I told my story in one post, and learning how to spread that out a little differently.
Yeah. Okay. So, firstly, should we get your husband on? Great advice. I think I agree with him, and it's also not what I always do,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I do follow people who tell the same origin story. It's very convincing and they do it over and over again. I don't know what kind of longevity that has for
Mm-hmm.
somebody, but that is a strategy that, I don't know, seems to work for a lot of people. But for me, I like, you know, I teach people how to come up with a bazillion ideas and then try them all instead because that's what I like, and it
Mm-hmm.
stops you from getting bored. And then every idea can become 3 posts. Yes to that part
Mm.
as well.
Yeah.
So tell your big long story when it came to you. Record it. It's now a 90-second video. Pull out one nugget that you said that was kind of a good little like mic drop moment. Paste it onto B-roll. Cool. Take the key things from the story, put it onto graphics, make it a quick carousel. Great. And so that one
Mm.
thing becomes a bunch of different things. And if you're scheduling your content, you can even schedule them to be weeks apart and no one will even remember you told it.
Right. Because nobody's even like binging your content in that linear way anyway. It's like we don't need to worry about those things because even if you did post them back to back, they're just going to be like, cool. There's just consistency here in this message. I'm seeing them
Yeah.
say the same thing, but it's resonating a little bit differently every time. And
Yep.
I agree with you. I think for me, it's like the broadness of the ideas. I almost step outside of my niche in a way because it's like, oh no, I want to talk about this and I want to talk about this. And I think for me, it just kind of helps to narrow in and say, wait a minute, this is like the through line, the main narrative, the whole purpose of me being on social media. And it's not to bring in every single component of everything I've ever done. So I'm not like changing niches where I'm talking about sewing one day and cooking one day. It's just like finding that consistent connecting thread is what I struggle with because then I'm like confusing everyone. They don't get what they're going to gain when they come to my account.
Okay. Well, okay. So, like, we're talking hypothetically here. So, I don't know, like, the exact specifics of these ideas that are coming to you. But when you're the service provider, you do have you are also a personal brand. And when there's an opportunity to bring in things that you're into, often that can be
Mm.
really valuable for the brand. Like, I like to think of this one girl, this is a long time ago. I slid into her DMs or she slid into mine because she was thinking about enrolling. And then we stopped talking about that. And I was like, I see you like Lego. My husband likes Lego. What should I get him for Christmas? Have you done any cool builds lately? And we just started talking about that for a day. And then she was like, anyway, can I have the link to buy? Like, we had departed from the sales conversation and we were just talking about Lego, but and I truly bought her recommendation for my customer services. But so sometimes bringing that stuff in, I'll have people that say to me, like, as soon as I saw you talk about being a gardener, I was sold. I knew. So, like, it's really valuable. Do I want you to do like I don't know, something like get ready with me to go to the Met Gala if it has like zero to do with even that? I feel like we could
I don't
tie
know.
into
That would probably do
entrepreneurship though.
numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
If that
As
was
a
my
bad
life, I
example.
think we'd be having a different conversation, right? I don't think I'd
Right.
be challenged for
Yeah.
social media content.
But maybe
But
if you did have a strategy with your
yeah.
growth return sales kind of written out, and every week I hit these buckets, and then you were posting your fun, maybe different ideas on top of that, one post isn't going to make people confused about who you are amongst a week of you posting on topic stuff.
Right.
It's probably going to make people like you more, have more like things to connect with you on. And then maybe you discover like something that people love to interact with. So thinking like going 1 degree of separation away from your main topic is, I think, allowed.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I'm going to pull out some of those dusty notes and use some of that content, I think. I know that there's like an eternal supply there. It's just a matter of action. And you mentioned something that I want to go into to help everybody, and then we'll kind of come back to these 3 different types of content. I think we're just going to get there naturally. The way to format, because I think sometimes it feels really daunting, but there's so many different ways to juice the lemon when it comes to Instagram. You mentioned it, like carousels, B-roll with text on the screen, talking direct to camera. So even within that, you add a ton of variety and spice. Do you recommend people kind of dabble in all of them, or just finding the way that resonates mostly with them that's going to lead to consistency?
Yeah, so I would recommend, like, ideally, you're doing all different types of content because the consumers like different things. And so you're kind of limiting yourself, especially with B-roll reels, meaning like 7-second text on screen reels. It's so easy to get those in front of big numbers. So like, why not figure out a way to make them work for you? But I do have a big focus in my methodology on what's realistic for you. So it's not even so much what content resonates with you, but if you live in a house with 8 kids and you're at home with them all day, talking head reels probably not going to happen. So if it's not realistic, screw it. We'll find an alternative. So ideally, yes, try all the different things. But if you're going to have a panic attack by going on camera, okay, let's not. It's not worth that much stress.
Yeah. Okay, so we've mentioned some. Let's see if there's more that we maybe haven't listed and just give people ideas, because I know sometimes this gets your creative juices flowing. You mentioned the talking head. That's just like you talking to the camera. There's B-roll. Let's go into even that, because that's just a matter of capturing little moments throughout the day, having little video clips that you stash away, and then you can just throw some text on. But you can also be doing B-roll and put together kind of like a compilation, right? And it could be voiceover. Like, what else can people do to pretty much show up and really have no excuse to not use the platform?
Lol. Yeah, actually, so we just started these like co-working days, and I give a prompt every week. And I was against that before because I felt like it was a band-aid, but people are loving them, and I feel like I've just been a snob about it. So every week I'm like, okay, now let's try B-roll, but there's 2 camera angles. What? Oh my God. Now try B-roll and you're doing a voiceover over it. Like, film yourself making a coffee and then do the voiceover over it. So yeah, so like those same examples you gave, but just like tiny little, it doesn't take a lot of editing. Like, it's really just a tiny tweak. We did one today. Oh, this is going to be hard to say in a audio platform, but basically you like swing your phone over your head and then swing your phone in front of your face, smile at your phone, swing it back over your head, and then the look is that it is kind of like looping. Actually, I made a little tutorial about it on Instagram. We can put it in the notes if you want. It's just like,
you can even screen share if you want to pull up your Instagram account, because we have this on YouTube as well if you want to.
Oh, okay, sure. I'll show you. It's so
Let's
simple.
give an example.
Okay.
And any others you want to show us? Give us some more. We can just give people the visual aid of different like ways to format content.
Okay, so can you see it?
Yep.
So here, real idea for you. I share these every week. Right? So you look stupid on the sidewalk and embrace that, because who cares?
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens with when your beginning frame is exactly the same as the end frame, and Instagram auto plays every reel twice.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not actually doing anything, but the video loops and then you get double the views because people don't know that it finished. It's silly. And I don't usually give, I don't encourage like trickery, but once people start having fun with this, it shows. Once you're having fun and you're like being a little bit silly and you go, oh, this was actually not so hard, the energy in the caption is different. The energy in you is different. And it's really charismatic. And then people want more of you.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Is there any other examples you want to show us of just like, maybe not that specific trend example, but just like ways that you can set up a piece of content? I know this is tricky for the audio, so maybe we'll kind of cut this out for you guys. But go ahead to her Instagram if you want to see tons of examples on formatting. And I know we're speaking at a very beginner level, but I think a lot more of us are in the beginner when it comes to Instagram content than those who are at your level.
I don't even know what this one was, but this is a make a reel with me. So even just that, see how I made a promise? Hey, here's a video idea. So you're locked in. And now I didn't just immediately give it to you because I want you to watch this for longer than like a few seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So if I just gave you the tip, like, here's a video idea, do this, then you're going to scroll away from the video and I'm not going to get as longer of a watch time. So instead, I stopped and gave you a very logical call to action, which is save this, because you should save it because you're not filming it right now. You're sitting on your couch scrolling, right?
Yeah.
So it's a logic-based call to action, and it made you watch this video longer, which means you have a higher viewer retention, which means the algorithm shows it to more people.
Yeah. Yep. I'm glad you mentioned that for everybody listening. I think there are a lot of things that have been priority in social media content. And right now it's really interest based, right? The longer people watch, the more likely you are for that video to go viral. So that's why hooks are super important. That's why visual hooks are super important. Because if people are like clicking away within 1 second, our attention spans are super stupid small, then you've lost it. And you've spent all this time on this concept and they're not even going to sit there and watch the rest of the video. So it's
Yeah. I'll play the rest for you in a second. But another example of this is like, if you go to ChatGPT to write your hooks, it gives you the answer in the hook. So people have no reason to keep watching. Right. So it'll be like, you're not getting clients for your signature offer because you're not niched down enough, right? Okay, cool. I now know what this is about. There's no mystery. And I've been told that a million times before, so I don't care. Mm-hmm. Versus when online business owners change just one thing about their signature offer, boom, I've seen sales triple.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hook, right? Now I'm going to listen to find out the answer.
Yeah.
Here's the rest of the video. Okay, cool. So it's so simple. Those ones have been around for years. We've been doing transitions like that. But like spin on the spot in 2 different outfits. Now people are going to watch because it looks like magic. And they're like, hey, came off. And then you put your text on the screen, tell them to read the caption, over deliver and be generous like you do in your nurture content, but down in the caption so they had to click to read it. And you got a growth post.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so we've got the growth. We've talked a little bit about nurture. I think most people understand that's probably the least challenging one to give. Maybe there's a few tips that you could recommend if we're doing nurture content wrong. And then do you recommend sales content in the feed, or is that something that you do mostly in stories?
Oh, yeah, for sure in the feed. Again, people consume content differently, right? Mm-hmm. So some people are never even don't even know what stories are. So we would be remiss to not put some in the feed. I also consider list growth content to be sales. And like you can play with it. If you have ManyChat set up, you can use list growth or put a CTA on pretty much anything. But it's a really good way to practice your sales because people are less afraid to sell something that's free because it's free and their money mindset doesn't get in the way. And it's a really good way to practice your sales. So every week, post some sales content for your lead magnet. And then some weeks sell your main thing. The way that we look at it is sell a little all the time and a lot sometimes. So a little bit every week, always be getting those invitations to buy, whether it's in your, a nice long storied carousel or your story or whatever. And then a few times a year, do a big promotion and believe in yourself.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned this a little bit. Use ManyChat. This is an automated platform that will help get people into your DMs, send them things. I think some of the time it's confusing to know what do you put in the caption then if you're not selling, if you're not sending them somewhere. We always want to have some sort of call to action, right?
Well, I would say we want an engagement attractor, which is what we call them in the program. So that's like my language for make it really easy for people to interact with the post. So that could be making it a carousel, putting an arrow on the first page of the carousel and putting a hook on the first page of the carousel and telling them you've got to swipe to get the goodies that I'm promising you. And now you've made it really easy for someone to give you engagement and interact with the post via touching their screen. Like all we want is people to touch the screen. Versus people, like what happens is people go, oh yeah, I'm not getting any engagement. Well, okay, well, what have you done to try and get engagement? I don't know. I made good content. Okay, well, make it easy for someone to interact with it. Put a hook in the first line of your caption so that they have to tap see more. Now they're touching their screen.
So you just want, like physical engagement, not even just commenting or like the traditional things, but literally like engaging with the content, interacting with it, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, like having a call to action that's like comment keyword and get my freebie. Or what do you guys think? Does the blue look better or does the red? That's like your traditional call to action. Sure, we want that stuff as much as possible, but also you just want people to touch their screen. That's the real, like every growth post, well, every post really, should have an easy way for someone to interact with it. So in the program, when someone says, can you look at my post? Is it good? Is this growth? I'll say, okay, you tell me. Is this growth or nurture? Okay, cool. That was your intention. Perfect. How did you want people to touch this? What was your plan? What are you hoping for? They might not do it, but what's the plan? And then they'll point out, oh, these are all my engagement attractors. Great, cool. Put it up. Let's see what happens. On to the next post.
Yeah. And I love that. That's good advice. I think we can get hung up in the planning so much that it's like, just put it out there. And I think we hear this a lot. Just put it out there. Just post it. Some of those things you spend the least time on, you just said this a little bit ago, end up going crazy. So it's just finding that good balance of, okay, you've learned it. Now take action on it. Don't just sit on it. Don't think that you need to know more before you're ready to start posting, because the action is going to teach you so much more about your audience and how to grow it and what's working than having the perfect strategy. But you need the strategy to understand what to post. It's so tricky.
Yeah, well, it starts with all of the just post it, right? Because I've just been telling you the format of Magic Marketing Machine this whole time. So sorry, I'm not just like trying to sit here and plug it. It's just like, this is what we're talking about, where this is a very how-to episode of the show. So we like you messaging, niche, audience. Here's how Instagram works. A bunch of ideas, cool. And then now let's build your strategy. And some people want to come in and they want to jump right to strategy. But think about if you jump right to, okay, every Monday I'm going to do a carousel, but you've never even tried a B-roll transition. If you've never even tried talking on camera, we don't want to build your strategy off of your current level of skill and awareness. I want to force you to try a bunch of different things, risk some being stupid, risk looking a little silly, for the huge reward of making discoveries. Then we'll lock in your strategy later based on all of that stuff that you discovered. So I hear you where it's like you have to join the union to get union roles, but you can't audition if you're not union. Like, hear it. So you've got to just force yourself to create the content, force yourself to play, try a bunch of different things with solid messaging and, a little bit of marketing know-how, get better at those hooks. And then with the information that you gain, then go ahead and lock in a more formal strategy that you can use on repeat, basically.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, we have gone so deep. I think we could keep talking, and I cannot believe we've been talking this long. You have been so amazing. Where's the best place for people to connect with you if they're like, hey, we've heard the framework. We want all the nitty gritty. We want to learn from you. We want to keep studying this out. Plug it away.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to www.magicmarketingmachine.com, there's a free, no, actually, let me say it again. I'm going to give you a link to a free training that talks more about the whole growth, nurture, sell thing, gives a bunch of tips, talks about engagement attractors, basically the entire process for getting clients from Instagram. And it also has information on how you can work with me.
Cool. Amazing. Okay. We will link that in the show notes. Thank you so much, Jenna, for sharing so much wisdom with us, being able to pull back the curtain on Instagram. I know we didn't even speak specifically to service providers in this, but I just think the deep dive, the masterclass in Instagram marketing has been so powerful. So I appreciate it.
My pleasure.